Today we're taking a look at ambiguity and the dangling modifier. We'll get to the dangling modifier here in a second, but first let's define ambiguity, which really just means that something can mean one or more things at the same time. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. So this is a sentence from my real life. I said this to my wife the other day. I said, I saw a bunch of turkeys picking Stella up. Now, Stella is our dog, and every Wednesday we take her to the Bed and Biscuit doggy daycare so that she can run around with all of her friends and get all of her energy out. We have a son now, so we don't go on quite such long walks anymore since his attention span isn't quite there for that. So she gets to run around, and so I was telling my wife that I saw a bunch of turkeys picking Stella up. Now, this seemed like a perfectly normal sentence for me to say, but when I said it to her, she started bending over laughing, right? She couldn't contain herself. And at first it wasn't clear why this was. But she explained to me how she was reading this sentence. So when I said I saw a bunch of turkeys picking Stella up, that phrase, picking Stella up, I intended to modify or describe I, right? The subject of the sentence. I, picking Stella up, saw a bunch of turkeys. But when I said this out loud, I saw a bunch of turkeys picking Stella up, she imagined that the turkeys themselves were picking Stella up. She thought that that phrase, picking Stella up, was modifying the turkeys. And if you think about that, that's a really ridiculous image to have. You can see here we've got, turkeys don't really fly very well. They might get 5 or 10 feet off the air. So it's pretty funny to imagine a turkey or a whole gaggle of turkeys picking up our dog and flying away with her. But that's what she pictured when she heard this sentence, and there's a reason for that, and it's called the dangling modifier. So the trouble with the sentence is this phrase, picking Stella up, which I intended to modify the I, is actually nowhere close to the I. It's way at the end of the sentence. It's at the very end. It's the farthest thing from the I, right? In fact, it's closest to that word turkeys. And so when we're speaking or writing and we use descriptive language, the location of that description will often dictate what is being described. English can be a tough language, and so the location of what's happening in the sentence becomes really important. And I wasn't paying enough attention to where I was putting picking Stella up in that sentence. Okay, so this is called a dangling modifier. Picking Stella up, this is a description, so it's modifying something. We're just not clear what we're modifying. Are we modifying I, or are we modifying the turkeys? So it's a modifier, and it's dangling because it's just sort of hanging out there in space at the very end of the sentence. And a lot of times you'll have dangling modifiers at the ends of sentences, and it might seem like they're modifying what comes right before them, but really they're modifying something much earlier in the sentence. So how can we fix this? Well, one idea is to move picking Stella up to the front of the sentence so that it's closest to I. So I could say, picking Stella up, I saw a bunch of turkeys. And now here that's a little bit clearer, right? We don't have the image, unfortunately, of these 10 or 12 turkeys grabbing onto Stella and trying to fly away with her, like something out of The Wizard of Oz. So that's one idea. But is that the best idea? I like this one better. So here again we're moving the description to the front of the sentence, but we're also going to reword for clarity. So I might change the front of that sentence a little bit and say, on my way to pick up Stella, or on my way to pick Stella up, I saw a bunch of turkeys. So now there's no ambiguity about this, right? We know exactly what I mean. On my way to pick Stella up, we know that this is modifying I, right? We've got that possessive pronoun my way, so we know that it's modifying the I. I saw a bunch of turkeys. So here there's no doubt about what's going on. So sometimes when we're rewriting for clarity, it's going to be more of an issue than just moving what's occurring in the sentence. We might have to reword a little bit to make things as clear as they need to be. And then just to break the sentence down, if you're curious, because we're kind of in the habit of doing this, the subject is I, the verb is saw. What do I see? A bunch. It's useful to note here that the direct object of saw is not turkeys, right? I saw a bunch. Turkeys is inside a prepositional phrase of turkeys. So since it's the object of the preposition, it cannot be the object of the verb, okay? So if you're thinking that the direct object here is turkeys, you're wrong. That's okay, it's a common mistake, but that's why. And then we have this troublesome adjective phrase, picking Stella up. And you may have remembered me using the word phrasal before, which is when we have a verb plus a little preposition at the end, like sign up, pick up, drop off. These are verbs, and the prepositions aren't actually acting as prepositions. They're just sort of completing this verb phrase. It's called a phrasal. So that's what we have here that's making up the adjective phrase. So that's a diagram of our sentence and how we can reword for clarity. And so if you find yourself ending with lots of modifiers at the ends of sentences, especially like ing words, things like that, read them through, maybe read them out loud to someone you know, and see if they fall over laughing with some unintended meaning that you never thought was there.